The Uganda we want. So mu Uganda gye twagala mu lutalo luno olw'okulwanyisa obulabbayo obukenuzi nze kyempita obuvundu. Munna Uganda alina okuba nga yeenyigiramu. Ffenna twenyigire mu lutalo.
Ate abalala tebasomye kuzimba wabula bayize okuzimba.
Uganda gye twagala okulaba ng'enguudo zonna nkole nungi, public transport nga weeri.
Kati eno gavumenti eriwo erina akabonero ka Lucifer. Buli kyotunulako mu Uganda kiriko oxygen. Either babika amawulire malungi oba mawulire mabi. Minisita teyeetagisa kabangali budde buno zaki.
At this time, why should somebody import furniture from outside Uganda? Let us leave NRM to be in charge for another 36 years or more.
I really want to see a Uganda that believes in the rule of law. If you have a constitution in place, follow it to the letter. Don't change laws just because you want them to favor you.
Kuba njagala omanye nti obugagga bwonna Uganda bwe yeeyagaliramu buyita waffe ku ttaka lyaffe. Naye busoga mugidibaze.
How can a referral hospital refer you to a private clinic? The Uganda we want buli muntu ateekwa okumanya nti I am a stakeholder, nkwatibwako si kwesuulirayo gwa naggamba.
Uganda oyinza okukakana nga mwe mulina ba graduates aba university nga bangi okusinga Ebungereza. Mwe mu focusinga nnyo ku degree. Eri bo bafocusinga nnyo nti byensomye mbijeemu omulimu n'enkola.
We are dreaming of a Uganda where at a young age there is such a relationship between parent and son, parent and daughter, where the daughter can say this is what I want.
Uganda gye twagala empya tesobola kubeerawo nga tewali mateeka. Amateeka agakola.
The Uganda we want. Wano ku Dream TV. Welcome to the program, The Uganda We Want. My name is Mulanzi Robert. I'm so delighted to be back here with this show. I hope you're doing well. A lot of things have been happening, a lot of events, key events in our nation, in Africa. There is tension in the increment of fuel, especially, actually globally, not only Uganda. You see, when we are affected here as a nation, we tend to think it's only Uganda that is feeling the pain and the infliction, which is not the case. I was speaking to one of my friends in the US and he told me, hey, like 1 gallon now is very, very costly. It's moving up to actually $5. So to them, that's a lot of money. Here, when they increase, of course, you see, we have few people who can come up and stand for the final user of any product. We don't have consumer protection rights here. People are very busy enjoying their lives. Well, that's not what has brought me today. We're going to talk about something very unique, and I hope you, our viewers, you're going to learn something. And today in the Uganda we want, I am joined by BRIDGET KYARIKUNDA. As some of you might have known her, but she's passionate and a professional environmental scientist, and she's an award-winning climate activist and Miss Climate Green Innovation Uganda. I think we last spoke about climate, that is 4 years ago. What a joy and what an opportunity for us to host BRIDGET to talk more about climate in Uganda and what we need to do and what's supposed to be done. Thank you so much for giving us the time.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you for the invitation.
Yes.
As introduced, yes, my name is BRIDGET KYARIKUNDA. I've been in this climate space for quite some time, specifically because of a scenario that greatly affected my home, my community where I come from, because of the impacts of climate change. So our viewers who are seeing us today, tonight, forever, whichever time you see us, what does climate change mean to you? In a layman's understanding, I would look at it as too much water and too much or high temperatures, extreme temperatures and rainfall over a very long period of time. Yeah? Translated as Mpinukayowire in my language, maybe just to clear the misconception is that if it overrains today and the next day it is shining, then it is not just climate change. It has to be over a very long period of time. So the daily weather conditions over like 10 years, a decade or something will inform if the climate has changed or not changed.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, I think I'm heading back to my geography class today. Bear with me. Bear with me as we listen more from Bridget. Now, well, someone who is viewing us for the first time may be actually asking, yes, you talked about her, a few lines, but who is her? Could you tell us more about yourself?
All right.
Yes.
As earlier introduced, yes, I am a professional environmental scientist. I am also a student of Masters in Climate Change and Development at Makerere University. My journey started in 2017, like I earlier said, when we had a very long dry spell in my community that led to drying of the crops and later on famine. It's greatly affected my community to an extent of a community that was heavily dependent on 2 rain seasons where they plant crops could now wait for a long year. The crops are drying, people are lacking what to eat, animals were dying. And that pushed me to pursue my career in that line. Why? Because I feel like I would create awareness, inform people from, should I say, a professional background, so that they know that what they are doing contributes to climate change. Yeah. For example, what happens in my community, Western Uganda, where I come from, is that people cut down all the trees to grow crops like beans, for example, but they are looking at quick money, forgetting that clearing the land bare and all that will lead to hot conditions. Those hot conditions will dry the crops eventually that they are planting. So it is our actions that are greatly contributing to this. My work has mainly been on awareness raising and then building the capacity of women and youth to be climate resilient, to be adaptive. Uganda is mainly an adaptation country. Most of our work is to make sure we cope up, we adjust with the conditions around. But because we do not emit a lot, we do less on mitigation.
Well, I've heard you very well, and now we want to learn something. You've been doing awareness, and it seems in Uganda we are still behind, because when I move around, when I'm going up country, we used to have a beautiful forests. Oh my God, we used to have a beautiful Mabida. We used to have, where I come from, we had a forest called the Kagongo forest. It was cut down, and the way it was cut down, actually, it was kind of being legalized from the government, because it was from the district officials who were selling the place to, to people who have money, and they cut down everything, and no tree was planted again. And I'm also aware we have the World Climate Vision, like that you who are in the climate space that you're trying to give out. But I want you to share more in line with that. What is our World Climate Vision, and how can we be adaptive as Uganda to that vision?
Okay, quite a lot of efforts are being done to make sure that Uganda adapts to the impacts of climate change from a national level, at an individual level, but I want to admit that less of the work is done at an individual level. Why people are not aware, there are very many misconceptions of thinking climate change is not real, but most of the issues that we are seeing here, we see cities flooding, we see trees going away. You talked about forests that are being cut down because people want quick money. Also, the other driver of climate change is poverty. People are cutting down trees to get money. So if someone mainly focuses on money, forgets about nature conservation, then we have a problem. Thus brings me to the vision now of sustainable development. Uganda has a vision 2040 that also tackles part of sustainable development. If we are cutting down trees to set up industries, how are we then replacing them, the one that we have cut them? Or if we are emitting fumes in the atmosphere, how are we planting more forests to make sure they clean the air we breathe? In Kampala, for example, if we are experiencing flooding, yes, we want to develop the roads, improve the drainage channels, but how is it sustainable? So all that draws back to sustainable development. As I earlier said, Uganda is doing a lot of work in terms of addressing climate change, specifically from its mandates of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, where Uganda is a party. Mainly, 2 treaties that address that is the Paris Agreement that mandates countries, parties to that agreement, that they should adapt to climate change. They should do things to address climate change. That's why we have nationally determined contributions. Countries come up with ideas that tackle climate change, both in 2 ways. Adaptation, whereby you're coping up with what is already happening. Mitigation, you're reducing the amount of emissions you're releasing in the atmosphere. Uganda has gone ahead to come up with the policy governance structure. It is overseen by Ministry of Water and Environment. It has put in place many policy frameworks like the National Climate Change Act of 2021. It has also gone ahead to come up with a National Climate Finance Strategy of 2025 to 2030. This is under Ministry of Finance. So if we have money in place, then we are able to address climate change. We cannot do it alone. We also have the bigger emitters, like the common saying says, Africa does not contribute so much to climate change, but we can do something, So those people are tasked to pay for the pollution, for the climate change they cause, such that we can ably address, but that is so much on a higher level. I also call upon individuals, the Uganda that we want to see. What are you doing as an individual? For example, in my perspective, I know.
No, actually, before you come to us, on the national, international level, we see that there's a lot that is being done. But to me, it sounds like it's on the paper. How can we bring that is on the paper down to the layman, down to the African, to the Ugandan? And we see that this talk of climate change is not in the negative way, but in the positive way. You've talked of the policies we have in the Ministry of Water and Environment. But how come that it's like you're telling us something new? What are they doing?
I hear you. So there is a gap in people being aware. I personally agree that I know because I am in this space. It is where my career lies. It is where my profession lies. So really I've picked interest to learn these things, But also I understand we cannot reach out to everyone. So like I said, there is the international policy framework under the Paris Agreement that mandates countries. So it is now coming back to Uganda, which is a party to that agreement. So Uganda came up with the National Climate Change Act of 2021. This act was done by Ministry of Water and Environment, very many consultations of various stakeholders, and it is then approved by Parliament. So that is at a national level. The same act mandates districts. Now we are going to local government. So come up with district climate change action plans to make sure that in all the work they are doing, at least there is a component of climate change. I understand the district offices, all districts in Uganda have the District Environment and Natural Resource Department, which is directly tasked to handle this at a district level. But the challenge that we are seeing is that it does not go back to a parish level. For example, we see how PDM went to a parish.
They stop at the district level.
And some districts have environment committees at a sub-county level, but we do not have like village climate committees, like we have village health teams. So for example, if we take into that and maybe prioritize it, people will mainly know more about climate change.
Are you not concerned about, because now when you talk, if a district does have an official for climate, you might find yourself that actually one person put two people actually enough. But it seems we create more space for people to do what they are not ready to do. We find people in the offices. This like recently I was speaking to one of the RDCs and he told me, do you know that we have a communication officer at the district? Then I told him, how come in my district, I don't know where to pick my national ID. I don't know where to pick my PDM money. When we have a communication officer, what is he doing in the office or she? What are they doing in those offices? It seems like even climate is what you're trying to tell me, that we could be having those people, but still they're doing nothing. And How can we tackle that?
I come with a different perspective. I don't think they are doing nothing. A lot of work is quite being done, but by the fact that the resource envelope, I know many people will talk about it. You cannot reach out to each and everyone. Also, sadly, currently in Uganda, environment, climate change budgets are not prioritized. Of course, they will prioritize other things like education, health, which is quite understandable, but with a small budget,
I thought you were going to start with defense.
No, I am talking about the basic needs. The basic needs, education, health.
Yeah.
So I see most of the money being channeled that side, and let's go into environment and climate change.
Yeah.
So why we see limited engagement on these people is because of that. But also people, our individuals, wherever they are, the grassroots in the communities, have limited information about this. Like I talked about earlier in the scenario in my community, people were thinking, maybe you've heard of people who hold the rain, not to rain. For example, if there is an act, like an event, someone will come do their magic. Maybe that's what I would say it in my language, but we are talking on a national audience, so I wouldn't say it. So those people will hold the rain at their upon request. So that magic, people still believe it works. So they think that even when I can rain, if it does not rain, probably that individual is holding the rain. So they are over spiritualizing what is really happening, forgetting that it is their actions contributing to that. For example, if you clear acres of land or forest to plant matoke, I come from a community that does a lot of subsistence farming, and the major crop, cash crop or food crop is matoke. So they look at quick money, and I'll still re-emphasize poverty is also one of the key most drivers of climate change. People look at where do I get money first, rather than leaving a forest or a tree there to protect them from the heat waves that they will experience later. They'll be like, let me first secure the bag. Let me first get that money. Then we shall talk about protecting this tree later. Maybe they'll cut down trees. In northern Uganda, people cut down sheer nut tree for charcoal burning. You can imagine. They do not know how much value that shear has. Shear alone, a kg of shear butter goes for a lot of Ugandan money. But someone will sell that one tree off for a bag of charcoal. In that side, it could go for like 40,000, 45 maximum for just
That's around $12 or $10.
You can imagine. So forgetting that after that, cutting down that tree, then it will be very hot. You will have to opt for a grass-thatched house to feel cooler. And even when it is hot, where there is a tree, it is a bit cool. You can't feel the heat. So people will end up going for quick money rather than conserving the environment. So I believe that we can address this by maybe building people's capacity to come up with green jobs. Someone will plant trees, but in the same trees, they will grow their beans. So in the long run, they'll benefit from things like carbon markets that we shall talk about later. If you are really planting trees and you follow the procedures, what is expected of you, you will have to benefit from this. And then you're paid later on. That's one of the things government of Uganda is doing. The climate change mechanisms were launched last year, mainly to strategize on how people can benefit from carbon markets. Also, the other thing, what happens in my community? Someone cut down trees because they want matoke. A bunch of matoke goes for like 30,000, and that is in like 5 months. Now imagine you have like 30 bunches. Someone earning over $1 million monthly in a village will prioritize that over conserving the environment. Then
forgetting that this is just a short-term
gain.
This is a short-term gain, not a long-term gain.
Yes. You get the short-term gain, but in the long run, when climate change impacts face, long dry spells, you're faced with famine, you're faced with no food, animals are dying, wells are drying up, so you have a lot of water scarcity, food insecurity. So people focus on the short-term gains, forgetting the long-term gains.
So should we contribute that to the way to the governance, or because as you move out trying to create awareness, and one of the key indicators why we do have a negative impact on our climate today in Uganda is poverty. So now in your package, what are some of the things you tell Ugandans? Because it's okay, government is having its own, policies. You talked about the PDM and so on, but it's still we are still poor.
We are not yet there.
Yeah, we are not yet in there. So which kind of message could you give to someone who is actually, and by the way, we have people who are, many of the guys we have who are in poverty lines actually have papers, they have qualifications, but they're poor. How can we tackle with that problem as well, as long as we are talking about the environment?
Okay, so I earlier alluded to green jobs, yeah? And for example, in a city setting, you've seen people that collect plastic bottles. They are doing something that does not affect the environment. We are not yet to do away with plastics for good, like no plastic at all. But how are you able to throw away a plastic bottle in a good way, not in a drainage channel that will flood when it has rained, and then you affect businesses, yeah? So you can use those plastics to recycle them and make products where you sell them and get money. Two, in a rural setting, you've heard of people doing agroforestry. I think I earlier explained it, but I can repeat it.
Yeah.
Is that, for example, you have your trees in like 10 acres of land. In the same space, you can still grow crops like beans and all the others that you can sell. So you're protecting the environment by planting the tree, but you're getting money from the what? From the...
I think I need to get an agriculturist to tell us, is it really okay to plant crops vis-a-vis the trees? Doesn't it affect our soil? Something like that.
No,
you need to
very
get a
much
soil
okay.
expert.
Very much okay. True. I can also allude to that because part of the qualification I have is in that. But maybe to be specific is on which kind of trees are you growing. For example, you'll not grow eucalyptus. If you've seen eucalyptus leaves, they will take years to break. Now imagine how long they will take to rot. Yeah. So you can plant indigenous trees, or you can plant like fruit trees to address food security. One, two, also get money from them. People that sell maybe avocados, mangoes, oranges, are getting money, but they are still protecting the environment in the long run. Then the other thing I wanted to talk about how to address the fuel issue, energy. Most of us Ugandans depend on charcoal fuel. Yeah, but if you cut down a tree, how many are you planting? Yeah, or if you have a tree that you want to cut firewood into, at least cut a branch, not a full tree. Honestly, yeah. Yes.
Or because we want much, we are like, if I cut a branch, I'll not get what I want. So I'd rather put it down.
Now you're looking at the economic aspect, but if you're looking at a home use, honestly, you will still be able to get the fuel to cook your beans, prepare your meals, but also be able to use your waste, for example, organic waste, the banana peelings that we see, use them with charcoal dust to make briquettes. These briquettes are on market. They are cheaper than charcoal these days, and they are more energy saving. And in the long run, you're protecting the environment.
Well, that's interesting. Now, when you talked about flooding, and it is affecting most of our cities now, you earlier on also hinted on kind of, picking the plastic bottles and so on. But how is urbanization affecting or leading to climate change negatively in our nation? And what can we do? And who is supposed to help us in this line? Because we still, when it comes to urban development, like housing and so on, people just build wherever they want. And I'm thinking that when it floods, definitely there is a change on the climate.
We're
supposed to do what can we do?
We're supposed to do what? All of us have a role to play. For example, someone who wants to buy land, do not buy land in a wetland. Muntobazi, like the Uganda say, people will buy land in a wetland. So where water was, it will definitely find its way. Why we see most of the areas in Kampala flooding when it rains is because the ecosystem was tampered with. So if you remove a wetland, put sand to fill it, construct a house, it will definitely, regardless of how long, water will still come back because it has overrained. What used to absorb it is no longer there. True, as we promote urbanization, How are we doing the smart housing? How are we doing it the right way? I understand authorities like Kampala City Authority are doing something on that, but in my perspective, a lot more can be done, yeah? Even when we are doing a lot of urbanization, at least we have green belts like the golf course in the middle of the city that cleans the air, for example. People go for relaxation. We also have City Square. But in areas where there is flooding, how about we have elevated bridges? For example, the construction is done up. You see what happened in Katonga the other year? It's because water broke the road. And we had to see flooding. A lot of sectors were interrupted. Transport costs increased. Food prices increased in Kampala. But as long as we are doing urbanization, let us do it in a sustainable way. We have green housing. I know very many stakeholders that are doing that. If you're doing, for example, one of the concepts they promote is constructing houses whereby you use less light. You know how that affects climate change? If you put it in an area where you do not need so much light, then you're saving energy. Yeah, I'll talk about a famous quote that, did you know that improper waste management leads to high water bills, and cutting down of trees leads to high electricity bills? I can explain it slightly about it. So about the water bills is because when you throw waste into the water sources, National Water will invest in more money to clean it. And the more money they invest in, the more the cost goes to the end consumer. And then for trees, of course, they help us in rain formation. So we need water, we need rainfall, we need trees to form rainfall such that we can generate more electricity, hydroelectricity.
And even me, a farmer, if the rainfall is being formed, definitely my seasons will not change.
Yes. Yeah, one of the greatest impacts of climate change on the agriculture sector is mainly the unpredictable planting seasons. Yeah, people that used to have 2 planting seasons now have 1 or sometimes none. So really, climate change is greatly impacting us. But also, I want to bring it to our attention that we are the greatest contributor of this. The urbanization that we are doing, the cutting down of trees, the fossil fuels. You will understand most of us drive petrol cars. Not to say we should run away from them, but how are we doing it in a sustainable way? Because if you're extracting fossil fuel, you're releasing more emissions in the atmosphere, which will in turn lead to climate change. Yeah. So by the fact that we are a country that cannot afford many electric cars, we'll still work with what is available for now. But for example, on short distances where you don't need a car, at least walk or use public means. There you're saving on the fuel, the emissions that should have gone to the environment to create climate change.
Okay, so of course you talked about Chira is trying to help, Chira Motors. They're trying to get us electric buses on the road. Of course, some of my taxi friends are not happy. And I think it is the vision of the president to say that we go electric. Actually, if I might say it like that way. We have borders now. That,
quite a number.
They're using batteries. You just recharge it and then you get on the road. And some of them are actually happy. They're like, we are making some good money and we are moving on very well. Of course, as a nation, you know very well, we are developing slowly. We are slow, I think. I don't know. We are slow, but I don't know if we are sure, because you can be slow but sure. I don't know. You can let me know on that.
We are doing baby steps on addressing climate change. We shall get there, maybe.
You hope that we shall get there. But now I want you to again highlight more on the individual now. Come to me, a Ugandan. I want to know how health-wise I'm being affected if there is a change in the climate, because I think that will help us and help our people to take action on making sure that we conserve our nature, we conserve our environment.
Okay, the health aspect is greatly affected, the health sector, greatly affected by climate change in very many ways, For example, the other day we had locusts, It was because of the heat waves.
Really?
Yes. But also those heat waves will even affect the productivity of the crops in the gardens, and that leads to malnutrition in a way. The other way is that when the climate changes, vectors increase. vectors, if we go back to our primary science, these ones cause diseases. Yeah, you see, there is a research that was done by Makerere School of Public Health, and it was showing that the increase of malaria cases is now increasing so slowly, is increasing steadily because of climate change. Why? The weather. The more stagnant water we have, the more mosquitoes will come, the more people fall sick. So that greatly affects the health sector. But also the other thing, areas like Kasese that are very prone to these impacts of climate change. I know in Kasese right now, in May and September, those are the most peak months when flooding is too much. So we saw hospitals being washed away where people would have gone maybe to deliver, to get some medicine, get some first aid, but hospitals are being washed away because of climate change. Yeah. So, and I like the fact that you really asked about the health aspect, because people will understand more to that. Let's talk about pollution. The more cars that we have on the road, the more the air is polluted, the more breathing contaminated air, and then our respiratory health is compromised.
Let me speak to my friends who are in the city, who don't want to move out of the city. Please, get some time, go outside of the city and relax. Just go to any place outside the Kampala or Wakiso and relax. You need fresh air, to be honest with you, because the more you consume it, the more it affects your, I was told, you can let me know my health, or specifically my lungs.
Yeah, it is. And one of the projects that I was working on was mainly looking at the effect of pollution on people. And pollution is seen in very many ways, but I'll speak to two specifically, air pollution and then improper waste management. Some people still burn waste. I know it is a very common practice in Uganda, but I would advise you shouldn't, because one, you're impacting your health. Two, you're also breathing in that smoke. That, for example, you will burn a plastic, then inhale the bad air, and then in the end, we see a lot of respiratory issues. Things like cancer, things like people who are asthmatic, they will be greatly affected by that. And then the other thing is that waste. Most people do not they overly generate waste. Yeah, of course we cannot avoid it. I also generate a lot of waste in my home, but how do I handle it? For example, I cannot just throw it away on the road. Yeah, I'll go to the next dustbin and put it there such that people are able to pick that waste and maybe recycle it or dispose it in a better way. Yeah, imagine a place that has a lot of, you've seen people throw kasasiro in drainage channels. For example, the area is going to smell, that is compromising your health. And then I will have very many rotten things around there. That is on the smell aspect, but that was because of individual negligence. Yeah, imagine if you had put it in a dustbin. If it is covered, at least the smell is reduced. Yeah, and then it will be taken to a safer place rather than just throwing it anyhow.
Yeah, I went to Mbale a few months ago. I wasn't actually happy by the city Mbale Council or something leadership there. Imagine landing in what we call Mbale City, but you're seeing flies everywhere on London Street, Market Street, that street as you go to the Bank of Uganda, the branch of Bank of Uganda in there. And when I went to the local people, I asked them, okay, tell me, do you pay money to collect this kasasiro? And they're like, yes, we pay money. But the leadership, they just eat the money and they're not doing anything. So as much as there could be individual negligence, but I think there's also leadership negligence in trying to do what they're supposed to do. You saw what happened to Chitezi there. You can't blame the people for that. And even in Kampala, you see our Kampala is still having those challenges with kasasiro. Of course, as you said, some individuals who are actually very negligent, they just throw everywhere. But now, the money, some of them say, we pay for them to collect this kasasiro. Then why are you telling me to put in another space when I already paid for them to come and collect it here? How can we handle that? Because we have an individual who is negligent, we have a leader who is negligent. Now, how can we take away the negligence in the middle there?
I think let's do our part. Yeah, we have a lot of blame game in this country. which is quite understandable to a smaller extent, but to a bigger extent, we can do something. Do your part, then blame government later. Yeah, for example, if you're just throwing anyhow, has government told you to just throw a bottle there? No, you're aware it is not good. Has it told you to just burn things that will greatly affect your health? So do your part, yeah? Segregate the waste, for example. If you have your banana peelings, put them in another side. Then put your plastics in another side. Or for example, a small quick way that people will say, they'll be like, we do not have all that money. We all put in sacks, even before you put it in one sack. At least have some segregation at source. Do your part. Then government, then after blame government for not collecting the waste. I understand, yes, for example, here in Kampala, KCCA is responsible for that. And actually, not only Kampala, you give us a scenario of Mbale.
Yeah.
Last year, Hoima had the same scenario that happened to Chitezi. But at least they will have done their part. They will have sensitized that people, they will pick things, this rubbish, and throw it away. Yes, not in time, all the time. But at least they are doing their part. But also, I believe if we can do their part, then we are making their work easier. If you can do our part, play your role, and then blame the other people later.
Yeah, I think you know, I've ever been to Porto City, tourism city, and in Mbarara City. That one, by default, you have to.
Yes, I've been to both of the cities.
Yes. Well, one thing I noticed when we were in Mbarara, you could see that they already have a place, as you have coming to Bihare, where they dump all the waste. They collect it from the city and take it right there. And people in there, they know what to do and where to put the... But for me, I credit the leadership of the city.
Cities.
They in Fort and Gulu and Bara, you could see that at least they try to sensitize the people. Bridget, one of the things that I want you to highlight more and talk about more is why is it that as a country, a problem first happens, then we react. What can we do to prevent? Because we know very well from the science background, prevention is better than cure. But here, we look for curing mechanisms when the thing has already happened. We don't want to prevent. What can we do?
I think I can speak to that in the Uganda we want to see.
Yes.
This has come in very, very timely at an area where we have members of parliament, leaders being sworn in, and who have great influence in our communities, in a lot of work being done to address climate change, improper waste management. For example, be an example as a leader. You highlighted what was happening here in Fort Porto. Yes, it was clean. It is slightly clean, but I think it is kind of lagging behind. But I also appreciate the fact that you alluded to the leadership of the cities doing something. So in this new regime of leaders, let them do a lot of efforts. They can decide to prioritize areas of these. For example, if you're prioritizing proper waste management, then you're helping other sectors to cope up. Sectors like transport, sectors like health, and also generally the well-being of the communities. So if our leaders are able to prioritize this, but also I like what the cultural leaders are doing. For example, in Uganda, I see people do community cleanups, that is good to create sensitization. We see cultural leaders being involved to come and do their part, or should I say, inspire people. If, for example, a Gombolola chief can go to clean a market, then you as an individual, So I feel that speaks volumes, so people can do something. Unfortunately, I don't like what usually happens of wanting to cure before we prevent what usually happens. So I feel like environment, climate change, sectors are very, very key to all the other sectors. So how about we give in more effort? For example, prioritize things of greening Uganda. We plant many trees around. I know there are many campaigns being done by media houses, by church, by other organizations, and many other government stakeholders to make sure that the country is green. Yes, previously the forest cover had gone down, but it increased according to National Forestry Authority. But that is mainly because of the many players that came in to do this. We see some schools putting should I say, small gardens to do urban farming in Kampala, but also creating specific areas in school compounds to grow trees, specifically fruit trees that will benefit the students, but also the trees that would in turn contribute to climate action. So I believe we can do more on that.
Yeah, I want to say something. I don't know what your comment will be when it comes to the cultural institutions. For example, Buganda, the king of Buganda, for example, they have functions like what the people in the West have, Kuhinjira or something. When you're coming to a function of Muganda, you have to bring a tree. Yeah, it's a must. Must bring a tree. So I think, and also I saw the Katikiro, the Prime Minister of Uganda, emphasizing people to plant trees wherever they're able. If it is your birthday, plant at least 1 or 2 or 3, and more emphasis now on the fruit trees, like, because as you said, you plant it, you're conserving the environment, at the same time you're getting a fruit from out of it,
and also selling it to get money.
And also you're selling it to get money. You're eating it to keep your immunity, your immunity very, very strong. So I think if we can try to do that, Rotary is also doing something in line with that. They are really doing well. Yeah, they are encouraging people. They make runs after that. They encourage them to go and plant some trees. Well, what is biodiversity loss? You see, we want to learn these things from you. What is biodiversity loss?
Biodiversity loss is quite a comprehensive thing because I'll give...
And what does it mean to me, a Ugandan?
Okay, to a Ugandan, for example, if you cut down a tree, if you cut down trees to be specific, you will have affected the birds that used to be there. For example, you've heard of Bat Valley on Michana Road. The birds that used to be there are no longer there. Why? Because the trees were cut. So you have lost the trees, you have lost the birds, and you have lost the other species in the same ecosystem. So in that way, that is biodiversity loss. Biodiversity, we look at very many species, trees, insects, birds, plants, and many others. So that is partly biodiversity loss. Another example I would give is when wetlands are filled with sand to construct something. There is a lot of importance wetlands play. For example, purifying the water. So if you fill it with land, and when it rains, water will come up on that sand. That's when we see flooding happening. Yeah, because you have tampered with the ecosystem.
A key example is what you talked about in Ikaton, force that rural stuff.
Yes. But also, I also earlier talked about the fact that the biggest part of Kampala sits on a wetland. You see what happens around Lugogo, then
of course,
Yusufulule, Chutugum House around there is because most of those areas are sitting in wetlands.
Yeah, we try to put up the flyover, but still, even now when it rains heavily, still we get some challenges in there. Some small cars sometimes cannot even be able to move, even though Mr. Am is trying to work on that inachievable channel, but still.
Yes, because that is sitting in a wetland. That is why I earlier said that water will always find its way. It will take long, but it will always find it. So that's why you'll be in some buildings and maybe their floors are a bit cracked. Do you know why? The foundation was not that good to
down there, the water is trying to find its way.
Yes. Yeah, so biodiversity loss is quite broad that I could not want to be a bit technical on this show. I understand not everyone has a background that I have, but I believe the 2 examples will really explain what biodiversity loss is.
Well, if you, in case it happens, because I think it can happen, and you are the Minister of Water and Environment, yes, you talked about the policies, but I told you, it seems these policies are on the paper. How can you translate that? What could be your kind of your strategy, your philosophy to see that Ugandans get to know this, and probably the one who is there will learn something and implement it, and we conserve our environment.
Yes,
in the 4 minutes that we have.
Okay, if I was the Minister of Environment, which I hope to be, inshallah. But
my name is Mulanzi, and I can tell you what Mulanzi means in the
forward tailor.
Well, yeah. Well, that one takes me to the traditional thing.
Okay.
I see the future.
Oh, okay. Hopefully I will be one. It's really one of my dreams, and hopefully I'll get there. But if I was, what would I do, for example? Ecosystem restoration. Cut one tree, plant 5. You're restoring the ecosystem around there.
Will you just say that in words, or you put it in law?
Actually, there are laws that address that, quite a number of them that address that. National Environment Management Authority does a lot of conservation work. Many other government agencies like Uganda Wildlife Authority make sure that this is being done. Do you know why areas around parks are always not just tampered with? Because there is a lot of enforcement being happened. So really, I know the papers, the policy framework is quite good, robust, enough to make us do something. So I think there is a lot of work to be done on enforcement to make sure that people follow these laws. Yeah, if you say someone who has to construct, for example, it has to be like 10 meters away from a river buffer zone, is that being put into practice? If it is not being
these petrol stations that get a license to be in the wetlands and swamps, why would we allow them?
Okay, why we allow them is to something I earlier talked about, sustainable development. And also before they set them up, they do environmental impact assessments. Yeah, these are done by NEMA, National Environment Management Authority. So they assess the impact they will cause on the environment. Yeah, so if they go ahead and give them awards, certificate to go and ahead and maybe do their business, they will be monitored. Environmental audits are done. Environmental monitoring is consistently done on businesses that construct in areas that are very much prone in conservation. So if we do that, for example, I think there is a lot of work to be done on strengthening enforcement. 1, 2, increasing awareness for these small-scale farmers, for example, you've heard of people that grow rice in wetlands.
In wetlands,
Yes, but at a small-scale level. Those ones do not have to get an environmental impact assessment certificate, but they are doing it the wrong way. So how can they know that I will not grow my cabbage close to a wetland? At least I should do it maybe in my backyard at home, irrigate where possible. If not, at least try an alternative that does not greatly affect the environment. So people can do a lot. I also believe that in my capacity as the Minister of Environment, I would make sure that communities are literate about climate change, nature conservation. Yeah. So if they are more literate, for example, they will do things the more responsible way.
We are more literate on TikTok and illiterate when it comes to environment.
Yes,
when it comes to climate.
Yeah, that's why more work is still going done, and maybe to appreciate media houses for the kind of work that you're doing. If this show goes out there, I believe people will truly gain some information and maybe a few practical skills that they can do. But also, I cannot end without addressing the issue of poverty. Most people destroy the environment because they are poor. Why? Because they do not have alternatives. They do not have what to do. So if we can do green jobs, encourage recycling, making sure that people are doing climate smart practices that will protect our environment, would be good to go.
Okay. Well, you've heard it from Bridget, and she's a passionate and professional environmental scientist. You've heard it from her. I'm just going to give her only 1 minute just to summarize in a broad sense the kind of Uganda that she envisions in line with climate, and will be out of here. Just a minute, summarize for us. Which Uganda do you want to see?
The kind of Uganda I would really want to see is starting with the leadership, the newly elected leaders, but also leaders in our own communities, our cultural leaders. Yes. How are you able to integrate these discussions in your other platforms? And by the fact that you have a platform, you hold power, you're very influential, so people will listen to you so much. So can we see more discussions about this? If you're going to engage communities or inspect a few government works in your your communities, have you told people about something like maybe do not cut down trees? Yeah. So I hope the next leaders will do that. But also the next Uganda I want to see is more ambassadors, many more people like me who are creating awareness to make sure that our communities are literate about climate change. Can we see more practical skills that people can do that they gain money from, but while conserving the environment? And then lastly, to the media houses, you reach further than we can reach as individuals. I believe that with this information being shared with many other places, we will definitely go a long way. Informed people respond better to climate changes. I thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Bridget. And allow me to quote something from Mr. Robert Riachila. He says, you cannot protect the environment unless you empower people. You cannot protect the environment unless you empower people. It's high time now. Let us empower people for a resilient and sustainable environment. My name is Mulanzi Robert. I sign out. Bye-bye.